What's good, ladies and gentlemen? So, this is not an official podcast, but just an interlude between podcast number 86 and number 87, which will be released tomorrow. So, this is more of a public service announcement and quick but very important message for my patrons. So I just wanted to announce that on the first of every month, we do alter passwords for some of the Patreon only content because I've already fielded a couple of questions, which I have not answered personally. Sorry. So I just wanted to make this quick podcast. I will answer the question of why does not my password work anymore? And it's because we changed the password on some content because every month we get a handful, just an extremely tiny percentage of our patrons that sign up and then immediately cancel. So they, have access to all the Patreon only content and then cancel. But unfortunately, my admin also sometimes finds that patrons will take their access to that Patreon only content and then republish it on their blog as their own, which obviously is in violation of our copyrighted content. And then it's just a hassle to have to contact them and then threaten them with copyright content violations and whatnot. It's just a waste of our time. So in order to prevent that from happening, we change the passwords. And as well, for some of you know, we update the old published Patreon only content with new fresh content, so that prevents people that just sign up and then quit from having access to the new updated information as well. So if you can't find the password, the old password that you may have written down somewhere, if it doesn't work, just go to the Patreon only platform and then look for that particular article. Or, I put one list of all the Patreon only article content and you'll find all the passwords, the new passwords listed there. So just do that on the first of every month if your passwords do not work. And I know that every Patreon that signs up and quits does not just quit to take advantage of trying to download a whole bunch of content that's worth multiple times the $5 amount. But, I know that some of you that may have quit just didn't find that content of value. So I understand that, so don't take offense. I'm just saying that there are some people of very shady, questionable character that necessitate the changing of passwords, and that's why we do it. And then also as well, please note that but you've probably heard me say in the weekly podcast already that there was an important critical update to prior information in some of the Patreon only content articles that I issued on April 29th and 30th. And in fact, I went, and it has to do with the last Patreon only article. I went and made that correction, that critical correction to an erroneous statement in that particular update that hopefully everyone has read, because I stated this multiple times in the weekly podcast as well. And then lastly, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, just go to the last Patreon only article, look, and there will be a correction notated in bold. And then finally, what else did I want to mention? I think that is basically it. I wanted to thank the Patreon that told me that he took advantage of one of my discussed opportunities, that has now paid his Patreon fees for the next several hundred years. So I got a good laugh out of that, because I don't really think you were being literal, because you told me exactly what the discussed opportunity was, and I think it was really impossible for you to make that, well, depending upon how much money you put into that. I guess anything's possible, but it would have required quite a substantial investment for you to make a return that would pay for your Patreon fees for the next several hundred years. I think you're just being metaphorical in that regard. However, do note that I have discussed highly leveraged opportunities like option calls and option puts that if you had taken profits from the initial, because there are certain options I discussed more than once that actually returned triple digit returns twice. And so had you put even an initial like $1,000 investment into some of these options and then put everything back in. So say that 1,000 turned into 2,500. So now you have 5,000 instead of 2,000, and then you put the 5,000 back in and more than doubled and it went to 10,000. Then it's possible, right? That you could have made enough money to pay for the Patreon fees for the next several hundred years. So in any event, I will continue to work to provide great value for that $5. Because if you look, I used to work at a Wall Street firm many, many years ago, and I quit out of disgust of the just a level of lack of integrity in the entire industry. And if we look at some of the top equity research fees, I'm not kidding you, Barclays in 2017 announced a top tier level equity research service to their customers that cost $445,000 per year, every year. That was the renewable fee, $445,000. I'm not misspeaking. That was actually their fee. And then Merrill Lynch analysts quit. Merrill Lynch started their own equity research firm that year and charged $1,000 to $5,000 per their analysis per stock. And as you know from even if you just joined on board and you went back and looked at all the opportunities I discussed in the last 18 months, I think my hit and success ratio was probably around like 95%, right? Because I can only think of like a couple of opportunities I discussed that did not turn profitable out of all the ones I discussed in the last 18 months off the top of my head. Now there may be more, but I can only recall 2 right now thinking that did not work out. And all the others turned profitable. And I would think just off of the top of my head that about half of them yielded high double digit to triple digit and even high triple digit returns as well. So that type of success rate, I doubt even the equity research firms are charging you $1,000 to $5,000 per analysis per one stock have that kind of hit ratio. So hopefully you guys that are awesome. I love my Patreon community. I've really enjoyed getting to talk to some of you personally as far as the top supporters of whom I've spoken to, that I provide that 30-minute Q&A session. I've really enjoyed getting to know some of you. Some of you just sent me really lengthy emails, and I've really have gotten to enjoy these conversations. So I feel really blessed to get to know some great people. Please do stay tuned for podcast 87, 88, and 89. Podcast 87, I'm going to talk about the Billionaire Fallacy, why we tend, not necessarily you, but we as a society tend to believe in the philanthropy of billionaires that I think really is disguised just as a PR move and to build up goodwill capital. But when we dig deep down below the surface, things are not what they seem to be on the surface level. And then podcast number 88, I'm just going to discuss how we can use the fantastic world of synesthesia. If you don't know what synesthesia is, then please check out that podcast, because it is a fascinating human condition. How we can learn to use the elements of synesthesia to improve our critical thinking skills. And then podcast number 89 is going to be the longest one of all. That one's going to be almost an hour long, but it will probably, I believe it will be one of the podcasts that you listen to, even if you listen to like all the popular podcast channels out there, that will challenge your critical thinking skills the most and really get you to reconsider your belief system, right? Because I'll give you a quick preview of podcast number 89, because many of our beliefs are not learned, but merely adopted. In other words, somebody told us, hey, believe in this, and we just embraced it as a strong belief of our own without any type of critical analysis, without any type of introspection, and without any type of process to understand whether what we were taught to believe was true or not. So there's a massive difference between learned beliefs and adopted beliefs. And most of us have adopted beliefs, not learned beliefs. So please do tune in for that podcast. And I really hope you listen to the full hour, because I believe this could be one of the most helpful to you, even though it's a non-financial topic, one of the most helpful to you in your investment success. Because when you invest, you have to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. You have to be able to separate all the propaganda, which is what you receive, and 99% of mainstream financial news is propaganda. It's not the truth, from the truth. And once you can do that, then your success rate goes way up. So I hope that all you guys have been getting good value out of your Patreon membership, because I think personally I provide way more than $5 a month value to the $5 transcendent level. Even for those of you that are my $15 level top supporters, I hope you feel that you are getting your money's worth, because I really do try to provide great value to all of you. So that about wraps it up. Have a great rest of the weekend, and make sure you check back for podcast number 87, which I will upload tomorrow. So long.